everyone, welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. You're watching WION World is One, and this is World DNA with me, Jyotsna Kumar. Let's begin with the headlines. Turkey's First Lady writes to her U.S. counterpart Melania Trump, asks her to show the same concern for Gaza's children as she has shown for those of Ukraine. Former Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz calls on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to forge a unity government along with members of the opposition in a bid to help release the hostages held in Gaza. Trump's special envoy for Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, to travel to Kiev for Independence Day celebrations as Russia advances and intensifies military pressure despite global efforts to broker peace. Colombian President Gustavo Petro visits injured policemen in a Bogota hospital after a guerrilla attack brought down a police helicopter with rifles and drones, killing 13. Hundreds of Venezuelans enroll in militia responding to President Nicolas Maduro's call to defend national sovereignty amid escalating tensions with the U.S. National Guard personnel patrolled the National Mall in Washington, D.C. after the U.S. Defense Secretary orders troops to be armed as the Trump administration's crime crackdown in the Capitol continues. The U.S. National Hurricane Center warns Tropical Storm Fernand has formed south-southeastern Bermuda, predicts it to strengthen over the next 48 hours, potentially approaching Ukraine. Hurricane strength by Monday. Seven villages in Pakistan's Punjab province inundated as rescuers continue efforts to move residents and livestock to safe places. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization Secretary General Nulan Yemekabiev has said that the upcoming SCO summit will witness the adoption of a series of political and economic documents as well as a statement on the 80th anniversary of victory in World War II and the founding of the United Nations. Now, the SCO Summit 2025 will be held in Tianjin in China from August 31st to September 1st with leaders from more than 20 countries and heads of 10 international organizations to attend. The summit will be the largest one since the establishment of the organization. Now, in an interview released on Friday, Yemekabiev shared expectations on the summit.
The summit will bring together not only the heads of state and government of the SCO member states, but also important guests such as leaders of SCO observer states, dialogue partners, and heads of international organizations. As is customary, the heads of state and government will review the achievements of cooperation over the past year, jointly chart future developments, exchange in-depth views, and coordinate positions on international hotspots and multilateral cooperation issues, and formulate unified response plans.
Они подводят итоги прошедшего года.
Yemekabiev highlighted that this year's summit is also expected to adopt a joint statement by member state leaders on the 80th anniversary of the victory in World War II, as part of efforts to uphold the post-war international order and the authority of the UN.
Yes, this year is indeed a year of great commemorative significance. On this occasion, the SCO member states have held numerous commemorative events. All member states agree that we must remember history, draw lessons from it, and forge the future. As the ancient Chinese saying goes, by learning from history, we can understand why powers rise and fall. The SCO attaches great importance to these commemorative activities.
Established 24 years ago by China and its 5 neighboring countries, the SCO now has 10 member states, 2 observer states, and 14 dialogue partners from Asia, Europe, and Africa. It has grown into a regional cooperation organization with the largest population and geographic coverage, as well as the greatest development potential. Moving on, former Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz is urging Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to form a unity government along with members of the opposition in a bid to help secure the release of hostages held by Hamas in Gaza.
I call on Netanyahu, Yair Lapid and Avigdor Lieberman. The time has come for a hostage redemption government, one that supports our service members and is time limited. Over the course of 6 months, we will complete these 2 missions and hold elections. The principles would be the government's term begins with a hostage deal that brings them all home.
The former defense minister's proposal would exclude far-right figures like National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, who dismissed the idea as surrender. Netanyahu's government is facing increased domestic pressure to secure an end to the war in Gaza, with mass protests calling for a deal that would see the hostages released.
We are here to protest against the Israeli government and specifically about Benjamin Netanyahu sabotaging again and again a deal of releasing the hostages and bringing them back home. We want all the hostages back home. The ones that are dead to be buried as proper, and the ones that are alive back to rehabilitation. We want them home, and we want them home now, and it's in our hands.
Now, out of the 251 hostages taken by Hamas in October 2023 attack, 50 remain in Gaza. U.S. President Donald Trump suggests that fewer than 20 are alive. Israeli officials fear that several of the living hostages are in serious danger of death, at least 2 of them in life-threatening condition and in dire need of medical attention. On the ground, meanwhile, preparations continue for a major Israeli operation to seize Gaza City. Palestinians call it a massacre amid an already looming humanitarian crisis in the city. They are moving south in cars, in donkey carts, and on foot by a coastal road in the central Gaza Strip.
The Israeli occupation is stepping up its bombing, heavily targeting the districts of Zaytun and Sabra. More than 700 homes have been destroyed in these areas since August 6th. In addition, UAVs have caused extensive damage in the southern part of the Zaytun neighborhood, exploding in the middle of homes and completely destroying residential blocks.
On Friday, the United Nations declared a famine in Gaza, saying that the situation has reached a catastrophic tipping point. Israel has called the report an outright lie. Hospitals, already overwhelmed by war injuries, now report soaring malnutrition cases, especially among children and the elderly. Doctors at the Al-Shifa hospital say that the failure to access IV nutrition is costing lives. Turkey's First Lady, Emin Erdogan, has appealed to her U.S. counterpart, Melania Trump, asking her to advocate for Gaza's children just as she had for children in Ukraine. She has asked Melania to write to Netanyahu to show mercy to Gaza's children. Now, tensions flared fiercely across the United Kingdom as passionate anti-migrant demonstrations confronted equally resolute counter-protesters in the towns of Hull and Liverpool. The protesters have ignited a combustible and highly charged debate over the government's increasingly controversial decision to house asylum seekers in local hotels. In Hull, a swelling crowd of anti-immigration protesters gathered outside a hotel, shouting profanities and waving Union Jack flags with nationalism. In Liverpool, a counter-protest organized by Stand Up to Racism was also held. Police could also be seen leading away protesters from the Abolish Asylum System protest and pushing back demonstrators from the counter-protest. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has been facing criticism over his immigration policies after official figures on Thursday showed asylum claims at a record high, with more migrants being housed in hotels compared with a year ago. In the United Kingdom, the debate has focused on the arrival of the migrants crossing the English Channel in overloaded boats run by smugglers and escalating tensions over housing thousands of asylum seekers at government expense around the country. The UK government is legally obligated to provide housing for asylum seekers who would otherwise be homeless while their claims are processed. Now, before the year 2020, hotels were used only marginally and temporarily as the government mostly used private housing providers to accommodate asylum seekers. However, the number of asylum seekers increased sharply starting in 2020, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, when social distancing rules forced the government to relocate thousands from shared housing into hotels for safety reasons. Now, widening President Trump's law enforcement crackdown in capital Washington, D.C., about a dozen unarmed National Guard members were seen patrolling the National Mall in Washington. Now, the development comes days after Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth ordered National Guard troops to start carrying firearms while patrolling the streets in the Capitol. The decision is an escalation in Trump's intervention into policing in the nation's capital. Nearly 2,000 National Guard members are stationed in heavily Democratic city. The troops have not taken part in law enforcement and largely have been protecting landmarks, including the National Mall and Union Station, and helping with crowd control. President Trump has warned that he will send the National Guard to Chicago and New York next as part of his federal crime crackdown. Trump has also threatened tighter controls on the Capitol's police in the days ahead.
We're going to make our country very safe. We're going to make our cities very, very safe. So I think Chicago will be our next, and then we'll help with New York.
And according to FBI Director Kash Patel, over 800 arrests have been made in the Capitol, including 27 from FBI personnel and 91 by federal partners. Trump has credited his federal takeover of the Capitol and its police force with driving down crime in the city, touting a week-long stretch without any murders as a miracle. Now, since he entered politics in 2015, Trump has described major cities, which are almost all run by Democrats, as infested by crime, drugs, and homelessness. In June, Trump had deployed federal troops in Los Angeles in response to protests against immigration raids. More from U.S. Texas legislators have approved a new electoral map aimed at carving out 5 new Republican-leaning seats in the state. Now, after more than 8 hours of debate, the Senate adopted the bill on a party line vote 18-11.
Secretary can call the roll. The ladies have been here for almost 11 hours. Senate will come to order. Chair recognizes Senator. Members,
the bill had been adopted by the state legislature's lower chamber last week. The bill now goes to Governor Greg Abbott to be signed into law amid a nationwide redistricting battle. The vote caps weeks of dramatic political theater that saw Democratic lawmakers flee the state in July to deny Republicans the quorum needed to pass the redistricting plan and drew nationwide attention to partisan redistricting known as gerrymandering. The move boosts the Republican Party's hopes of retaining control of Congress in next year's midterm elections. Republicans have acknowledged they believed winning more congressional seats in Texas would help the party maintain its slim majority in the House of Representatives next year. More states controlled by Republicans are considering similar action. Texas' move has sparked a similar push from California, which launched a process for redrawing the state's map earlier this week. The move could potentially create 5 new seats for Democrats. Both parties are now looking at other states where the rules might allow hasty redrawing of maps in ways that could create more seats. Trump has already encouraged states like Florida, Indiana, and Missouri to redraw their electoral maps. The redistricting battle adds a volatile and high-stakes new element to next year's midterm elections. Now, responding to President Nicolas Maduro's call, hundreds of Venezuelans have enrolled for national militia amid escalating tensions with the United States. The enrollment drive comes after increased international pressure and economic sanctions, with the Venezuelan government accusing the U.S. of attempting to undermine its leadership. While urging people to attend national sovereignty during a rally, President Nicolas Maduro had announced a nationwide enlistment drive.
We reject any threat coming from the empire. We do not agree with any of those threats that are coercing us and trying to subdue the nation. We are a sovereign, firm, and patriotic people, and we will always be free and independent.
Last week, in response to threats from U.S., Maduro had announced that he would deploy 4.5 million militia members by calling the threats extravagant and bizarre. His remarks come after Trump's administration doubled its reward for Maduro's arrest to $50 million. They have accused him of leading a cocaine smuggling network known as the Coles. Washington, which does not recognize Maduro's past 2 election victories, had announced sanctions against the cartel and Maduro's administration last month. In addition to that, U.S. military has also reportedly deployed several vessels to the southern Caribbean, and this is part of Trump's crackdown on Latin American drug cartels. Now, the questions on data quality in recent months have policymakers in a bind. Economists, too, are finding it difficult to analyze data points to predict the likely path. In this next report, we decode what to watch in the week ahead. Take a look.
The dilemma for central banks today is the questions on the quality of the economic data releases. One doesn't have to look very far for data quality issues. Take the UK, where last week's retail sales release was pulled because of dodgy numbers. It joins the labour force survey and producer prices in a not very exclusive club of data plagued by quality issues. Time will tell what the latest issue was. but life has gotten harder for stats agencies around the world. That is not just because of funding issues or political pressure. Survey response rates are falling, making key numbers like US non-farm payrolls sketchier. Then more recently, high inflation. The growing tendency of firms to make big price increases in the first few months of the year has made it harder to deflate the data. Whatever the reasons, the problem is getting worse and not better. So central banks have just got to roll with what's in front of them. As a result, policymakers are more likely to disagree with one another, and we're already seeing it. The Bank of England's August decision failed to reach an initial verdict for the first time ever. The Fed's July meeting had two governors dissent against the majority verdict, which hasn't happened for decades. Put simply, data quality and the volatility it fosters means more than ever. So it's possible to reach a range of different interpretations from the same set of numbers. And central banks are going to be more reluctant to pre-commit to anything in advance. On the US data due this week, core PCE deflator inflation figures are going to be key, especially as last week's Fed minutes revealed that officials think we're still to see the full effects of tariffs. Finally, and most importantly, dodgy data means central banks are more likely to be wrong. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Now, from casting spells at Hogwarts to making his mark beyond Potter, Hollywood's beloved star Rupert Grint turns 37 today. Let's take a look back at his journey. Now, the British actor shot to fame at just 11 years old when he was cast as Harry Potter's loyal best friend in one of the biggest film series of all time. Over the next decade, he became a household name alongside Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson. Now, for the final film, Rupert took a step back from Hollywood. He explored theater, television, proving he was not afraid to carve his path outside of Potter. Now, in recent years, he has made a strong return to screens with series Servant and Cabinet of Curiosities, earning praise for his darker, more mature roles. Beyond acting, the 37-year-old embraced fatherhood in 2020, welcoming his daughter with longtime partner Georgia Groom. Fans also love his relatable social media posts. From child star to a versatile performer, Rupert Grint continues to enchant fans. With that, we call a wrap to this bulletin, but don't go anywhere. Coming up, Trump's special envoy for Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, is to travel to Kiev for Independence Day celebrations, and this as Russia is still advancing and intensifying military pressure. We'll get you all the details on that story on the other side. Keep watching WION World is One.
As a disturbing pattern of crimes against celebrities shake the world, we take a look at the high-profile break-ins and stalking incidents. Meet the team of Rangi and dissect the street style taking over Copenhagen. All this and much more with me, Diksha Bisla, on WION at these times.
This week on the West Asia Post, Iran says the fight is far from over.